by Great White Hot Sauce. It's a small batch, handmade hot sauce, made specially for you. So if you like hot sauce, you'll love Great White Hot Sauce. It's the hot sauce that bites back. Find it at www.trygreatwhite.com. Well, on this episode, we're going to walk by some animals, climb the wall, keep walking till we get to the dark side of the moon. At which point we'll say, wish you were here. Oh, I know that's bad. It's pretty bad. But hey, how else do you introduce Pink Floyd? I did my best. Enjoy the show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
The KOFB Studio presents Milk Crates and Turntables, a music discussion podcast hosted by Scott McLean with his co-host Jack Calabrese. Now, let's talk music. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the podcast. You know the name of it because you're either watching it or listening to it. My name is Scott McLean. I'm the host, producer, inventor, creator. No, I'm just a talking head on this show, I guess. But yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit that little bell next to it. You'll get an alert every time we go live. If you're watching on Facebook, hit the share button. Let people watch the show. Let them enjoy it. I think it's a good show. You know who else thinks it's a good show? Did I just talk too fast? You know who else thinks it's a good show? The man that is one big momentary lapse of reason. My friend, my brother, Jack Calabrese.
Scott. Bad puns tonight. Bad puns.
I'm loaded with them.
I love it.
I mean, we're talking about Pink Floyd, right?
We are talking about Pink Floyd, sure.
All right. Well, with that said, are you ready to do a good show?
I am ready to do a good show.
Is that our catchphrase? Should I get T-shirts? Are you ready to do a good show?
Either that or you're
an idiot.
Hey, Dave DeFilippis is on. What's
Hey,
up? Big Dave.
What else is there to do on a Wednesday night in the freezing cold weather, right?
Dude, I ran into Dave a couple of weeks ago. He was buying Italian cold cuts at this place where you buy Italian.
Yeah, you buy Italian cold cuts. I knew that was
right.
Yeah. All right, so let's get on with the show. So we're talking about Pink Floyd. All right. Yes. I mean, again, it's one of those bands that. What else can you say about them? I mean, we're not going to come up with any gems that most people that are fans don't already know, but we hope we entertain you, and we hope maybe you do come away with something that you maybe didn't know. Because I do have, Jack, some did you knows. I know you love those.
I'm very excited.
Even better, I have a nice list of on this day at the end of the show.
God. Hey, why don't we just do the entire show of on this day?
Well, we can't because it depends on the day. It's the luck of the draw. We do this on Wednesday night. It's just if something fell on that day, we'd be lucky. But anyways,
it almost seems like every time you do this on this day, we get an Elvis Presley historical. Elvis Presley on this day.
Well, you might not be disappointed. You might not be.
He bought a pair of socks.
You might not be disappointed today. Hey, let me ask you, what was your introduction to Pink Floyd?
My introduction, so when I was a kid, my uncles lived at the house, and I remember my Uncle Larry had the album Metal. and I couldn't make heads nor tails of the music. I didn't understand it. And then very soon after, my dad, like probably a lot of dads at that point, had Dark Side of the Moon.
Right. Okay.
But the funny thing is that, beyond that, like my father had Dark Side of the Moon, but that's it. He didn't buy Animals. He didn't have Wish You Were Here. He didn't have The Wall. He didn't have any of the stuff. He didn't have Piper at the Gates of Dawn or any of that stuff. He got probably caught up in the fever, in the fad, in the excitement, and the just the movement that was Dark Side of the Moon.
Did you know?
Oh, wow. Wait a minute. What time is it? I can't even see a clock. Is that a new record for us? 9 minutes in. 9 minutes in. We got up first. Did you know?
That 1 in 12 people in the world have owned or owns Dark Side of the Moon. 1 in 12 people in the world.
I think that's absolutely fantastic.
That's amazing.
I mean, how many times have you owned it? I have to tell you, I think I've owned it on 8-track, on album, probably a couple of times.
Yep.
Had it on cassette, had it on CD.
Yep. I believe I have 3 copies of that from the donated record collections that I collect. Like I always say, I collect collections, and each one of them have had it. Has it in it. Dark Side of the Moon, along with Sticky Fingers. They all have Sticky Fingers in them too.
So all the collections that you have collected over the years, is there one particular, and I know I'm going off topic here, is there one particular record, like what's the record that you have the most copies of?
I think it's actually Sticky Fingers.
So how
I think
many
I have
do you think?
six copies. 6 copies, and like we always said before, like I said before on the show, none of them are in great shape because they all got played the hell out of. In the covers, you got to mix and match a cover, your best copy with your best cover, and that zipper ruined a lot of covers on the backs.
Yeah, ruined a lot of them.
My introduction to Pink Floyd is pretty interesting. So, in 1972, there was a channel that it was the predecessor to HBO. It was called the Star Channel. Do you remember that?
I remember Star Channel.
Star Channel, right?
I don't want to.
Movies.
I don't want to steal your thunder. But the one thing that I remember about Star Channel, so this is maybe even about the same time, and maybe even just a tiny bit before HBO. And the thing that was kind of interesting about Star Channel is they would show one movie a day. They would show it at 6 a.m., 9 a.m., 12, 3, 6, 9, maybe one later. And then they would show a dirty movie at late night.
Yeah, and that's when you got the antenna and you tried to maneuver it. If you didn't have it, everyone had a hack. They didn't call it a hack back then to get Star Channel one way or another, and you could just see enough of the dirty movie, right?
But here it is. You and I, 2 old guys talking. I remember back in the day on TV where they would show one thing all day long.
Just think, someday some kid's going to be saying, yeah, I remember when TikTok was first started. I watched it when I was on TikTok when it first started. They'll be telling their grandchildren. But anyways, I digress. My introduction in 1972, I was over Guy Scarpa's house. We hung out. We were just kids. So in 72, I was 9, right? So I was born in 63, right? And he had Star Channel. And my introduction to Pink Floyd was the film Live in Pompeii. Did you ever see it?
That was
1972. The 72. Film. It aired on Star Channel in 72, right? That was the original film. And I remember watching that. And like you said, like I couldn't really get it, right? I watched it though because it was fascinating how they did it inside this kind of coliseum in the round, right? And then it gets to the song One of These Days. And Roger Waters just rips the bass on that song, right? But David Gilmour, how is he not considered, or even in the conversation, and he's usually not, of greatest guitarist? That dude does a guitar solo on that song. If you've never heard it and you're listening, go listen to One of These Days by Pink Floyd. You will not be disappointed. They are just what?
I don't think that David Gilmour is not on that list. I think
he never gets considered. It's always Van Halen. It's always Stevie Ray, Eric Clapton.
Hey! Don't say Van Halen like he doesn't belong up there.
No, I'm saying they're always the same names when the conversation comes up.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that.
And David Gilmour is never put in there, and he should be in there.
No, I think David Gilmour is always on the list. He's just a little bit further back. Now, one could make the argument that he belongs a little bit closer to number one. I think he is a brilliant guitar player. Very melodic, very stylized. I mean, he's a great player. He can rip when he wants to.
He can rip, yep.
He can be really mellow. He's a good songwriter. He's a great singer. So I agree with you, but I do think that he is on those lists. He's probably just not in like the top 5.
All right. I've never heard you mention it, but anyways, so interestingly enough, that was the original film version. It was on Star TV, and I watched it, and I was like, wow! I never forgot it. Right? I was 9. I never forgot that. It was just, and I watched it today. I went back and rewatched it, and I'm still like, wow, these guys were just so ahead of their time. They really were.
Was that film? Was that a documentary? It was just
no. It was just. Well, it was. They called it Live in Pompeii, but there was no audience. They just recorded a live set, not like mixed. It didn't get right in the middle of this Coliseum. Go watch it. You'd be very interested in it. Now, get yourself a cigar. Get yourself some bourbon. I'm telling you, that's like how you want to watch this now, right?
Not drinking in January, brother.
Now, interestingly enough, you know the scream on the wall right before they say, "We don't need," you hear that scream?
Yeah, sure.
Roger Waters does that in this film. That same exact screech. I heard it. I said, whoa, wait a minute. Like, that's from The Wall. Well, evidently, what he did from The Wall was from Live in Pompeii. It's identical. You'll hear it. You have to watch it. It's amazing. It's an amazing performance, what they do. And you see it's over a couple of days because, they're not in the same clothing. But it's really, really great. But interestingly enough, they had a theatrical version of it in 1974. And in that, they throw in On the Run, right? Studio footage. They throw in Us and Them studio footage. And they throw in Brain Damage studio footage for the theatrical release. Now, Dark Side of the Moon came out in 1973, right?
Yeah.
So I think to sell it in the movie theater, to get people to go, they threw those songs in there. I could be wrong.
Well, but, they did record Dark Side of the Moon over the course of 1972 and 1973, so they may have been working on it. So, from a continuity standpoint in terms of, the movie and whatnot, it may have just fit. And they may have cut it from the original release because they hadn't released the record.
No, it was studio footage. So what they did is they basically went back, and since they recorded, evidently they videotaped all their recording and they on all their sessions, and they implemented them incorporated them into the theatrical release because the original film didn't have that in it. So, anyways, moving on. There's two Pink Floyds, wouldn't you say?
Three.
Okay, I think I know where you're getting at with the third one. The first one is Syd Barrett.
Yeah,
but they were mildly successful.
Well, they had an interesting start. So, I think the first thing that's kind of cool about Pink Floyd is that, like the guys from Queen, like the guys in Radiohead, you could even say, Mick Jagger, that these were not, just kids off the street that were playing in a garage. These were educated, people. Roger Waters and I think Nick Mason were architect students. They were going to school, and they got caught up in the whole kind of rock and roll thing, and eventually they connected with Syd Barrett, and they went through a number of different names. There's a whole bunch of names that they actually went through. I think their ultimate name that they landed on it was Tea Party,
The Teacups.
Tea Set or something.
Tea Set, yeah, the Tea Set. You know what one of their names was? Megadethers.
The Megadeths.
The Megadeths.
So they were originally called Sigma 6, then the Megadeths, then the Abdabs, then the Screaming Abdads, then Leonard's Lodgers, then Spectrum 5, and then they finally settled on Tea Set. So Tea Set, now you're talking about the full-on Syd Barrett days, and they were getting ready to do a radio show, and they were alerted to the fact that there was another band that was already called Tea Set. So Syd Barrett, on the spot, came up with the Pink Floyd sound, if I remember correctly. And the Pink Floyd sound actually came from two old blues records that he had on the Piedmont label. It was Pink Anderson and Floyd Council.
Yeah.
And he just kind of combined those names.
He was into that the blues stuff, yeah.
We all were. I love that stuff. Do you like that stuff?
I do. I don't see how you can't. I don't see how you can't.
I still listen to a lot of that stuff. And I mean like the old stuff. I mean like the acoustic Appalachian, Delta, Texas blues. A lot of
raw guitar. Just raw guitar.
One guy or one woman in a guitar, and that's it, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have the Syd Barrett years. Yeah, well, I don't know how many years. He only did 1.5 albums with them, really.
64 to 68. 67, 68, where he just, he lost his mind.
Well, they ousted him in 68. They basically said, that's it,
He left.
Well,
he was repeatedly.
They had enough of him. He was tripping all the time. He was
by the way,
dropping LSD like daily.
Yeah, right before he opted to leave, and I'm sure he was pressured to leave. They did a short tour of the United States where they played American Bandstand and the Pat Boone Show. The Pat Boone Show, they were playing to a backing track, and apparently, and I think you can actually see this on YouTube. He just stood there at the mic with his arms down by his side, not lip syncing. He was just staring off into space. And I think that they were like, that's fucking it. We love Syd. He's the leader of this band, but no more. Like, he was the principal songwriter, and he was the main attraction of that band. So much that the Pink Floyd's first management team, these were guys that were not in the music business, but saw Pink Floyd play and thought that here's a way for us to kind of get into the music business. So one of them utilized their inheritance, and they bought a bunch of equipment for the band, and they managed the band for a little bit, right? Are you with me?
Yeah.
Is this an exciting story?
I'm waiting in anticipation for the end of it.
So here's the end of it. So with all of the pressures going on and Syd losing his mind, whether he left or whether he got pushed out or whatever the case is, Syd Barrett ends up leaving the band. This management team, thinking that Syd Barrett is the genius of this band, follows Syd Barrett and drops Pink Floyd.
Well, the 60s was a funny time, wasn't it? Drug-induced,
They opt to follow, and these guys had Pink Floyd in their hands. Millions and millions and tens of millions of dollars to follow, and they let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. So the original.
I'm glad you waited until the end of that story.
No, that's a good story. I'm not gonna call you an idiot like you would to me. That's a good story.
I would never call you an idiot.
No, I would hope not. I would hope not. So pretty much the original lineup: Syd Barrett, Roger Waters, Nick Mason, and Richard Wright. Right, and Gilmour came along later in '67, replacing Barrett. Right, there's a picture out there of the five of them together.
Yeah, not originally. So when David Gilmour came on, he was brought on as a second guitar player. He was the fifth member. So there was a short period of time where they were in the band together.
Yeah, I was just saying before you interrupted me. There are pictures out there, the five of them together, which basically would lead you to think they were a band.
You just said that they brought Gilmour in and replaced him. They didn't, at least not initially.
I never said that. I didn't say that.
Roll back the tape.
Anyways, the most unsung hero in that band has to be Richard Wright. The most under the radar, the least known member of that band is definitely Richard Wright. And that guy, he was evidently a deterrent, an irritant to them at first because he couldn't settle on an instrument. He played multiple instruments and he just couldn't. They were like, you need to find an instrument. And they would play a bar somewhere and there would be a piano. So he'd stop playing the piano. And they're like, dude, what are you doing? Like, come on, just play it, play. So he finally settled, fortunately, on that. But he was one of the primary songwriters also in that band. Later on, Gilmour and Waters took over more of the writing duties, but he wrote a lot. And then he basically became the arranger of their songs. So he was always in it. He always had
I agree with you. And we're probably jumping ahead a little bit, but, songwriting is a funny thing, and you and we've talked about this, about, Sting and Andy Summers and the Police and whatnot, and who gets writing credit, even though there are contributions from other people in the band. I largely don't think it's fair, and it does cause a lot of rifts and strife. And that certainly was the case in Pink Floyd, where the three other members of Pink Floyd were alienated Roger Waters. And a lot of it was because they were fighting over songwriting credits, and they were fighting over money.
The Police, the same thing happened.
It's happened countless times.
Yeah. That happened to Journey too. With the band members, Neil Schon was basically saying, I am Journey, blah, blah, him in the bass, but we're not talking about them. He mainly became an arranger and a composer for Waters and Gilmour toward the end. And then he contributed less. And then he toured with The Wall in '81, and that was it. Like, he kind of just walked. But I'm sure he got a lot of money from those years with Pink Floyd. A lot of checks came his way, I'm sure.
Those guys were all super loaded. I don't know what their record deal was, but in the 70s, those guys lived in major mansions and had land and expensive cars and all of the trappings that
one album.
Yeah.
One album.
Yeah.
One album. Let me ask you this. Who sold more records, the Beatles or Pink Floyd?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I'm going to say the Beatles.
By far they did, yes. And it's kind of it's not a trick question. It's a loaded question because we're talking about Pink Floyd, so people would be led to believe that, Pink Floyd, they didn't. Nobody else sold the Beatles. But they did outsell with Dark Side of the Moon single album sales. So, because I think the White Album was the Beatles. It's regarded as their number one selling album. And I think that was 40 million units, and Dark Side of the Moon has sold 85 million. That's just amazing.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. So
have you ever, I mean, I think one of the cool things about that record, never mind the music itself, but even the cover was just so incredibly iconic. With the black background and the one beam of white light going through the prism,
right,
and coming out in the the whole rainbow. And I was actually reading today when I was looking at it. So, first off, Dark Side of the Moon, there are a lot of people that think that it actually has to do with, astronomy in the moon. And what it really refers to is it's really an exploration in lunacy.
Syd Barrett.
And Syd Barrett losing his mind. And the cover actually features a white beam of light that represents a unity passing through a prism, which represents society. And then the refracted beam of colored light symbolizes unity diffracting, leaving an absence of unity. So there's actually a lot of meaning behind that cover.
That should have been a Did You Know?
Maybe it will be in a future show.
I think maybe that should have been a Did You Know? That the meaning of, see, you got to learn how to do that, buddy. You got to learn the did you. I know you're not a.
So, Scott. Scott, did you know?
Well, here we go.
That aside from the band
I'm waiting
recording Dark Side of the Moon, there was one other unsung hero that had producing credits that went on to enjoy fame in his own right. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I know Alan Parsons was the engineer, right?
That's it.
Yeah, he won a Grammy for that.
So Alan Parsons was heavily involved in the engineering and the production of Dark Side of the Moon, and was so instrumental in it that when Pink Floyd came back from their tour and they were getting ready to record their follow-up, Wish You Were Here, they actually asked Alan Parsons to produce the record, and he said
no.
Because he was busy being the eye in the sky.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I mean, if you listen to Alan Parsons' music, it's all Dark Side of the Moon. It's just different versions of Dark Side of the Moon. He's very good at that ambient sound. He's very good at that, methodical rhythms. Here's
a question that I would like to know. I don't have the answer to this, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But do you think Alan Parsons made more money being involved in the Dark Side of the Moon, or did he make more money being in the Alan Parsons project?
Well, it depends on if he gets any money from that. Does he get a royalty check, or did he get paid just once? Yeah,
more than likely, if he's listed in the credits,
because engineers usually just get that, the sample, and that's it. They get the. We just got interrupted.
Who did we get interrupted by?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. Somebody has a key to the live stream. Anyways,
bitches.
Usually engineers get paid just for the session.
Well, I'd like to research that and understand.
Yeah, it's a good question, though.
Because I have real concerns about Alan Parsons' financial welfare.
They had a falling out, I believe, too. I think they didn't give him the credit. One of them, Roger Waters, basically was trying to take credit away from him, saying he only had a little bit to do with it, and there was this and that. And when he won the Grammy for Best Engineer when they used to have that. I don't even know if they still have that. And Dark Side of the Moon didn't win any Grammys. So there might have been a little hostility because of that. And that was that. I mean, they didn't like that he was getting a lot of credit. Maybe they don't think he deserved it. I don't know. He was just an engineer, I think, was one of the quotes. I could be wrong.
Look, not for nothing, but not to take anything away from Alan Parsons and his contribution to Dark Side of the Moon. But it's not like that Pink Floyd, once they parted ways with Alan Parsons, that they no longer had success. They went on to enjoy great success.
Yeah.
So he can claim involvement, and probably legitimately so,
for that album.
In terms of how integral he was in terms of their overall career, he's one part of it.
But that was the launching pad. That was, Joshua Tree. That was, that sent them into the stratosphere of music. And they never came down, like U2 did. But that's another show. Hey, is Pink Floyd a standalone band? Like, you have Zeppelin, the Stones, the Who. Pink Floyd always seems to be like on the outskirts, kind of not at number 5, not at number 4. They're always their own entity. It seems to me, it seems like they're a standalone group. They're comparative to anybody. You could put them up against possibly the Beatles if they could hold their own. Let's put it that way. And I kind of say it like this. I used to have this 73 Eldorado convertible, Apollo yellow with chocolate brown interior. This thing was beautiful, right? It was beautiful.
I didn't realize you were a pimp.
Yeah, well, and I'm driving through Fort Lauderdale, and Fort Lauderdale is the yacht capital of the United States, one of the yacht capitals of the world, actually. So there's a lot of money down there, right? And I would pull up to a red light next to a Bentley or a Ferrari or any of that. And they always looked at that car and just started nodding like, damn, it could hold its own. And it was only a 73 Cadillac, but it held its own next to these big money, fast luxury rides, right? So I think
was it in great shape?
Yeah, it was in really good shape. Yeah, it's a beautiful car. I'll send you a picture of it. I'm surprised you didn't see it. I used to post pictures of it. But,
so anybody that drives a car is probably going to have an appreciation of a classic like that.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like Pink Floyd is my Apollo yellow 73 Cadillac. They can stand next to anybody, and you just got to look at them and go, they get respect. They hold their own if you compare them to anybody.
I have no doubt.
I could be wrong.
Many of those people came and said, you won't believe this, but I pulled up and there was an old Cadillac and Danny DeVito was driving it.
Oh, you're an idiot. I was trying to be nice this show. We still got a half hour to go. There will be payback, my friend. And
hey,
for
Bob
the podcast listeners. See, Perry Dietovich, friend of the show, said, yes, they sound like no one and no one sounds like them. And that's true. Were they the originators? Were they the godfathers of prog rock? Because they were like a progressive but bluesy sound, but they were earlier in their career more prog rock oriented with those long guitar solos.
I think that there were a number of bands that were, experimenting with that, if you want to call it the psychedelic sound. Yeah, they certainly were, the biggest and most well-known in and around, London. And this is prior to, Dark Side of the Moon. And not everybody got it. One of the things that I had read is in the early days when they were really. So originally they started playing like blues covers, like a lot of those bands. And then they started writing their own songs. And then they were doing, kind of the nightclub circuit. And they were playing these clubs where they were doing 2, sometimes 3 90-minute sets.
Right.
And to avoid playing the same songs over and over, to, stretch their set a little bit.
Yeah.
That's when they started discovering, look, if we solo for a little while, if we get into this kind of jammy, groovy type thing, that's how they started to expand their sound, and not everybody got it. One of the things that I had read previously, and I think I read this a while ago, that there was at least one situation where they played a place and the owner of the club refused to play them, citing that what you guys just played was not music. You guys agreed to come and play music. That wasn't music. It actually went to court, and the club owner won.
I bet because they weren't used to anything like that. Like you said, it was just new and experimental. Pink Floyd is the first. Did you know? Pink Floyd is the first rock band to use live surround sound at a concert.
That is incredibly fascinating.
It is. They used the joysticks to send the sound throughout the stadium or the arena. I mean, if you think about that, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, they were innovators in terms of sound, and they were always big into lights and their light shows and the stage things with the balloon animals and the lasers and all that stuff. That was one of the cool things about Pink Floyd. And yet again, there was another band that you and I, we were just in that right or wrong age, depending upon how you look at it, that we never really got to see Pink Floyd when they were in their prime.
I told you I had a chance, but it involved smoking angel dust in the graveyard, and I was like, I'm not smoking angel dust, and then going to see Pink Floyd.
What year was this?
Oh, I was in junior high, so it was like 70. I graduated 81, 80, 79, 78, 77, 76, 75.
Hey, don't forget to count the 2 years in 8th grade.
Listen, Jethro. Yeah, so it was like mid 70s.
So that must have been. Well, it must have been. I would guess it was like 76, 77. It may have been the Animals tour.
It sounds about right. Let me see. I think I got the list here just to be accurate. Yeah, so 75 was Wish You Were Here. And Animals was 77.
Yeah, so
it was in and around that ballpark. Probably Wish You Were Here.
So yeah, you're a little bit older than me. So, you may have had the opportunity. You did the right thing by not smoking angel dust. Good for you, Scott. But then when they did the Wall tour, they didn't come anywhere near Boston.
No.
They only played a couple of shows, and if I remember correctly, most of that show they actually played behind the wall or behind
until
screen.
It came down. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't really see the band that much. But I think if I remember correctly, they only played like London. They may have played like New York and LA. But nowhere near where we were, and I don't think we were.
Well, in '79, I mean, to move all that around, that's a huge stage set. Production. Yeah, huge production. In '79, there weren't really ways and means to do that efficiently. I don't think, but maybe they just didn't want to waste the money. They could have probably done it. Where does Pink Floyd stand in U.S. album charts? They're in the top 15. All right. Where does Pink Floyd stand in U.S. album sales?
In terms of their overall career?
Yeah, overall sales. Yeah. Where do you think they stand from 1 to 15?
I would say they're number 7.
All right. Let's start with Journey, 48 million. Right. U2 has 52 million. So that's 14. Number 13, Fleetwood Mac is 54.5 million albums. Then what are we at? 12, Van Halen with 56.5 million. 11 is Metallica at 63 million. And was it 10? Bruce Springsteen, 65.5 million. Aerosmith at 9, 66.5 million. At 8, the Rolling Stones, 66.5 million. At 7, AC/DC, 75 million. And
nice negative space.
No, actually, you know what? You're right. They are number 7 at 72 million. Then AC/DC is 75 million. And to end it out, Elton John, 78 million. Billy Joel, 84 million. Led Zeppelin, 111 million. Eagles, 120 million. And the Beatles with 183 million albums sold in the U.S.
So I was right. So
you were right. Yeah, good guess, man. Yeah, they were number 7. Yeah.
You're gonna send me a King of Facebook mug?
No.
Some hot sauce?
You don't get that. No, you don't get that.
Oh, apparently
you dogged me on the show earlier. I don't forget those things.
Come on.
No.
Which album do you like better? Do you like The Wall better, or do you think that Dark Side of the Moon is better?
I think Dark Side of the Moon is better. I do. I think The Wall is it's like listening to Quadrophenia. You know?
Concept album.
Yeah, it's a concept album, right? But I think my favorite album is Wish You Were Here. I think that's my favorite Pink Floyd album.
Why?
I just like it better. I mean, I don't know if there's a particular reason why. Why do I like the Pet Shop Boys? Why? I don't know. It's a good album. You know?
I just like it.
Yeah. What's your favorite album?
I think Dark Side of the Moon is my favorite Pink Floyd record.
Yeah, you really can't go wrong.
I think it's, Dark Side of the Moon, The Wall, and then Wish You Were Here. Although the song Wish You Were Here is way up there for me. I just love that song.
Yeah, that's a great song, isn't it?
So but by that time, Syd Barrett had been out of the band for what? 7 years? So he left between 67 and 68. They recorded Wish You Were Here in 74, 75. So one of the interesting stories about that is Wish You Were Here is predominantly about Syd Barrett. And there are elements of Dark Side of the Moon that are about Syd Barrett as well. They were really kind of haunted by that whole experience, with him. And one of the interesting stories is that as they were recording Wish You Were Here, they looked in the control room and there was this fat, bald guy, and they didn't even know who it was. And it was Syd Barrett. Syd Barrett had blown up because, probably, medication that he was on and inactivity or whatever it was. And he had shaved his head, but they had not seen him since then. And he was there. And I guess he hung around for a little bit, just that afternoon. And they asked him what he thought, and he didn't really think much of the music they were making. And then apparently there was one other story where I think it was David Gilmour ran into Syd Barrett in Harrods, the department store, the big famed and famous department store in England, and he dropped his bags, whatever he had purchased, and just ran away.
He bolted.
Nobody saw him again.
That's the last I've seen him. I'm going to pull up for the viewers. This was Syd Barrett at the hiding in the shadows, and during that session, and someone took a picture of him. Check this out. This is what he looked like. Shaved his eyebrows, right? So what is that in The Wall, right? Didn't Pink shave his eyebrows?
He sure
did.
The
Wall was about Syd Barrett also, by the way.
Yeah,
he influenced it. Yeah, but look at that. He looks like. What would you say he looks like? I don't know, but he's definitely not. He was in his younger days, he was slim, good-looking guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
totally. Just lost his mind.
Yeah. And you know what? I think the band was better for it. I think that they came out with much better music. Right. Their first album, their first releases, I think their second And how they were introduced it was one of those like 45s, right? They would release 45s. I don't think it was a complete album yet, but See Emily Play was probably there. It was what was the other one before that?
Was off of Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Their very first single was something called Arnold Lane.
Arnold Lane, about a transvestite.
Which got banned because back in the day they were talking about a cross-dresser.
Yeah. And but See Emily Play, did you ever hear Bowie's version of that on Pinups?
Oh yeah, sure.
That I was mesmerized by that when I heard that. And I was a kid. I was 8, 9, 10. I was listening to Bowie. Like, it's pretty advanced. I still look back and go, how did I even, jump to that level of it's intelligent music as opposed to the Archies and, the bubblegum music that.
You were already doing your research. So someday in the future, you could say,
I do a podcast.
Did you know?
Yeah. Speaking of that, did you know that Pink Floyd named an album after a woman with a pacemaker? Yeah. What's the name of the album?
I don't know. The Works?
Adam Hart Mother.
Oh.
Which was a headline in a newspaper about a pregnant woman who had been the first ever recipient of an atomic pacemaker.
All right. No coffee mug for me.
No. Who ended Pink Floyd? Who was the main contributor to saying this is done?
David Gilmour.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you had talked about there are two kind of iterations of Pink Floyd, and they're really three. And I think we kind of agree on that. So the Syd Barrett years, and one of the interesting things about the Syd Barrett years, like you and I have had these conversations about Fleetwood Mac. There's Fleetwood Mac with Christy McVie and Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. But if you go back and you listen to the old Peter Green, Bob Welch was there for an album, but they were a blues band, totally different sound.
They were horrible.
The same thing. The same thing as it pertained to Pink Floyd. Prior to Syd Barrett leaving, it was Syd Barrett's influence, and they were playing kind of the hippie, psychedelic, all of that crap. And then he leaves, and Roger Waters really kind of takes the helm, and they're a whole different band. And I agree with you. I think that Syd Barrett leaving, as unfortunate as it was really a huge benefit for the rest of the band because they had to find their own creative voices and found such great direction as a result. But the band started.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm listening to you really, but this comment has to be read out loud. This has to be read for the podcast listeners. We're live streaming over Facebook and YouTube. And one of the commenters just said, "Did you know the Pink Floyd song Comfortably Numb was written by Prince?"
Mark Flynn, you are a giant idiot.
Biggest idiot of all. I just thought it was funny. I'm sorry I interrupted. I'm sorry.
He is a big, giant Syd Barrett-looking idiot.
Okay, you're close. If he shaved his eyebrows and shaved his head, he'd look like Syd Barrett. Hold on. I'm sorry, podcast listeners. I'm going to bring this picture up again. That's Mark.
There he is.
It's
Bubba. It's Bubba.
With no eyebrows and a shaved head. Oh God! For the podcast, this is primarily for the podcast, but the live stream is secondary. But it's pretty interesting. If you want to watch the live stream, it's on the Milk Crates and Turntables channel on YouTube. You can't miss it. It's pretty funny. But anyways, I'm sorry. Where were we? Before I so rudely interrupted you.
It's okay.
Well, let me get back to something. David Gilmour ended Pink Floyd, but when Richard Wright died in 2008, They think that's what most people think led to the death of the group. But according to David Gilmour, the performance at Live 8 was the last reunion for the band, and there were no more plans for another date. That was it.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, one of the other things that is not really that well known is that at one point Richard Wright, prior to The Wall, had left the band.
Yeah, he did. He did, yeah.
He kind of got forced out. They had challenged him because he wasn't really making any contributions, and the band was splintering at that point. They were fighting over, songwriting credits and all the same typical behind the music bullshit that actually happens. But the interesting thing that happens is he ends up leaving or getting pushed out of the band. Then they decide. So what happens is Roger Waters ends up being quasi broke. He had a bunch of what they called negligent investments. So he had to do something. He actually came back to the band. Talk about genius. At one time, he actually gave them, this was in 1978, he said, look, we can either do the pros and cons of Hitchhiking, which ended up being his first solo album, or The Wall. He basically had both of those concepts
to himself.
In hand, right? But the interesting thing is they bring back Richard Wright, but they don't bring him back as a full member.
Yeah, that's kind of
right. So they bring him back as a hired musician, right?
Yeah.
So they go on tour to play The Wall live. As we had said, that they only played it a couple of times, and they brought that 40-foot high wall and whatnot. The tour lost a shitload of money. The only member of Pink Floyd to walk out of that tour with money was Richard Wright.
Yeah, you got to think that guy. He was helping arrange the songs for Gilmour and Waters. How fucking nerve-wracking or irritating could that have been dealing with those guys? They're geniuses, and geniuses are very quirky, and they're both perfectionists. They're both perfectionists.
Yes,
I know I am. Thank you. You redeemed yourself. I was lining you up for a good one. I will refrain. Good job. You could be the Richard Wright, of this podcast and walk away scot-free. Get it? Scot-free.
Oh, God.
Still loaded with the bad puns.
Holy Moses.
Yeah, anyways. Well,
in any event, they record The Wall. By the way, did you know?
Hey, you getting into it.
Who was the famous singer that sung backup on The Wall? This is pretty well known. Are you looking it up?
It was Cher, wasn't it?
Are you Googling it?
No. I'm not you. For the podcast listeners, Jack has his head down an awful lot looking at that phone.
I have some notes.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying, Jack.
I'm sorry. Did you not want me to be prepared? Do you want me to? I could wing it.
We probably could. We probably could. But
you're busting my balls because I have notes and I did a little bit of research because all of your did you knows come right off the top of your fucking bald Sid Barrett head.
Hey, wait, no. The Sid Barrett head belongs to Mark Flynn, friend of the show. Not me, buddy. No.
We all have the Sid Barrett head.
Yeah. What did you ask me? Oh, who was the famous backup singer?
So it was a famous singer that sang backup and I guess
on Dark Side of the Moon.
No, on The Wall. And the funny thing about this person is when you think about different genres of music, this singer that sang backup is just not somebody that belongs in that realm. It's not like
Chaka Khan.
No.
Paul Abdul.
Think earlier and cheesier.
Earlier and cheesier. I don't know. Tell me.
Tony Tennille.
Yeah. The Captain in Tennille.
Tony Tennille of the Captain in Tennille.
Yeah. A 70s hottie, by the way. She was a 70s hottie.
Yeah, she was pretty good.
For the 70s, she had that whole 70s thing going on.
She was great.
She was no. I don't know. You can't say Farrah Fawcett. Yeah, she was no Farrah Fawcett, but she was a good-looking woman.
She wasn't bad.
She's better looking than you. She's better looking than you.
Wow.
Just saying.
That's great.
All right.
Really creative.
I mean, what else is there to say about Pink Floyd? I mean, we
Well,
could go on.
we haven't really covered the last iteration, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on.
No,
it,
we can. It's a podcast. We can go as long as we want. You're the one that has to go to bed because you're tired because you get up too early and you don't have your tea. You don't have your tea with you tonight.
I do have my tea. I got my tea.
Oh, Jackie has his tea tonight. Look at he's got his little. He's got the tea bag with the little Salada tea hanging out the back. The tag with the tampon string.
You having a good time over there?
I am.
You okay?
I am. This is good. I'm killing myself.
So in any event, Roger Waters leaves the band.
Yeah.
And Dave Gilmour wanting to, carry on, and the rest of the guys wanting to carry on. They put out in 1987 A Momentary Lapse of Reason.
That's a good album.
It's a good album, highly criticized for a couple of things. Number one, it's probably one of the few Pink Floyd albums that doesn't have like a common theme to it, right?
Yeah.
It's not a Wall, Dark Side of the Moon concept album.
You go from Learning to Fly to Dogs of War to, two totally different.
On the Turning Away.
Yeah.
But the other reason why they were criticized, well, there was a lot of controversy because they were carrying on without Roger Waters, who was probably viewed as the driving creative force of the band, and probably unfairly. But the other reason is that they brought in a lot of outside musicians. If you look at who plays on that record, the original guys from Pink Floyd minus Roger Waters play on that record. But there's like 14 other musicians. They brought in a bunch of studio, people. Now, I initially thought that one of the reasons that album was criticized for was that they didn't write any of the music, that they had brought in hired guns, which was not true. Both A Momentary Lapse of Reason and The Division Bell, which was the 1994 follow-up, were almost all, not all of it, but almost all of it was entirely written by David Gilmour. Right. One could argue the point that those two last records were both David Gilmour solo records.
Yeah.
With the rest of those guys playing. But the cool thing about A Momentary Lapse of Reason is finally my friends and I got to see
Pink Floyd.
The remnants of Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
And to be able to hear those songs live. Not exactly the same, would have been much better with Roger Waters, etc. But they toured, they played Sullivan Stadium, shithole stadium.
Yeah, it was.
In 87, 88, somewhere in there. And then I
was in the Philippines. Yeah.
And then they came back around and they played in 1994.
See, while I was overseas serving my country, you were at the Sullivan Stadium smoking dope, watching Pink Floyd. See how?
No, I was drinking tea. I was drinking tea.
Touche, my friend. Touche.
I was drinking tea.
So that song. So I actually liked that album. So there's a song in there, and I already mentioned it, right?
It was a huge record for them. And by the way, I'm not sure if it was the Division Bell tour or the Momentary Lapse of Reason tour. Look, the last tour that Pink Floyd did, like I said, they lost money.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which one of those tours it was, but it grossed like $118 million.
Yeah.
So those guys made a lot of money, in the 80s. So let me ask you something.
Well, let me get to this before we move on to that. So
go ahead.
When I was in the Philippines, I was in the Air Force, security police, K9. We were a definite different breed of military personnel. We would, we only went out at night, and we had these land sharks at the end of this leash, a 6-foot leash, and we would patrol through the bush looking for intruders. It could be hairy at times, it could be boring at times, right? But it was a unique job to do that. I mean, you come across everything from snakes to giant spiders to intruders, chasing intruders, slap flares, fire teams coming over, looking, da-da-da. So you have to be a different type of person to do that, right? So we would all get together, all the canine handlers, when we were off duty. If there was we always found each other. And in the Philippines, it was like, just picture Deer Hunter when De Niro goes back to Saigon to get Nikki, right? And he's downtown Saigon, and it's just chaos. It's total madness, right? Except there was a dirt road. Road wasn't paved until like 88, 89, right? The main road outside the gate. If we were in a bar, and then that's when everything was converting to video, right? So they had big video bars. When that song, if you've never seen it, the video for Dogs of War is fucking intense. It's a great fucking video. And when you're a dog handler, you see that video. I got goosebumps to this day. And that was 30 plus years ago. When I hear that song, I see that song, I'm right there with all these madmen, all of them, all these canine handlers. And we would just take over the bar for that one song. It was a lot of camaraderie. Mark Flynn was with me, a lot of camaraderie. And that song was our rally cry wherever we were. So good memories with that one.
That's pretty cool, man. Thank you for your service.
You're welcome. Thanks for smoking dope, drinking tea in '87 during the Pink Floyd concert.
How do you think Roger Waters felt back in the day, in '87, where, he thinks that he is the heart and soul of that band, and he pulls out, and all of a sudden they pull out a record that ended up on number 3 on the charts. Yeah. I think they were prevented from number 1 from Michael Jackson's Bad.
Yeah,
there was another record that was like number 2 at the time. I don't remember what it was, but it peaks at number 3. They have one of the biggest tours of the year. They're all over MTV and whatnot. How did he respond? He sued them.
Yeah. Yep.
They
sour grapes, buddy. Sour grapes.
Those guys.
That's a whole nother conversation.
He wanted to,
the rights to the name and
all of that stuff. It got really, really ugly, and that band never really recovered. I think they played together at Live 8. Roger Waters and David Gilmour have done a couple of things. There was a music memorial to Syd Barrett, where some of the guys from Pink Floyd played, and Roger Waters. They were all there, but they didn't play together. And then Roger Waters and David Gilmour played a benefit show. And then at the O2, when Roger Waters did his last The Wall tour, where he did The Wall in its entirety, David Gilmour came out and played it. The night before I saw it at the O2, I happened to be in London, and I missed that by a night. But he only played that one. He only played Comfortably Numb.
All right, question. David Gilmour is playing at the Boston Garden, and Roger Waters is playing at the Worcester Centrum on the same night. Who do you go see?
I would probably go see Roger Waters.
I'd go see David Gilmour, I think. Yeah.
I think it would depend on what they were doing. So,
if it was just
hold on.
Okay.
Let me give you a couple of qualifiers. So to your point, David Gilmour is playing.
It's my question. Why does it need qualifiers? It's my question.
So let me enhance your question for you. So David Gilmour is playing the Boston Garden. On the same night, Roger Waters is playing the Worcester Centrum.
Correct.
David Gilmour is doing all of his solo stuff with a few Pink Floyd songs. And Roger Waters is doing The Dark Side of the Moon in its entirety. Which one do you go to?
Well, that's kind of a no-brainer, right?
Well, it's a legitimate question.
Yeah. I mean,
you can't just say David Gilmour is playing one place and Roger Waters is playing the other place. So
you always have to just make something out of nothing, don't you? You always have to get technical. It's kind of like this. Now, you and me is why David Gilmour and Roger Waters broke up. You know what I mean? So, and I'll be David Gilmour. Thank you. I'm David Gilmour.
You're gonna get served papers tomorrow. I'm suing you
For the podcast rights.
Milk Crates and Turntables.
Turntables.
I'm going solo.
How's this? We'll do two podcasts. Mine will be called Milk Crates, and yours will be called Turntables. And we'll see who gets more downloads, buddy.
So let me ask you this, if I may.
Yeah.
You not on this podcast, but sometimes you can have political leanings. You can be very passionate about it. You're very knowledgeable. You do your research and all that. Would you, if Roger Waters was coming to whatever the arena is,
I know where you're going. Yeah, go on.
Would you, and he was doing the Dark Side of the Moon and the Wall in their entirety with all of the stage props and all of that stuff, knowing about his just
liberal
vitriol against, Trump and all that stuff, would you go see him?
You know what? I don't let that stuff get in my way. I mean, you know what? I've seen Bono rail during a concert. That's the only thing that would turn me off, is if they stop preaching during a concert. I would probably leave. Because I don't like our friend Mark Talent, walked out of a U2 concert, and he's a huge fan because of Bono's railing and ranting. I mean, you can only hear that so much at a concert. It might not bother you. It might not bother you.
There's a number of reasons why he walked out of that show.
That's one of them, though. But, I would go hoping that he wouldn't do that. Hoping that he wouldn't do that.
So just so you know, I saw Roger Waters the last time he played the Garden, and he did a lot of Dark Side of the Moon, and he did a select from their entire catalog. It was almost all Pink Floyd stuff. But you could not escape the anti-Trump stuff. Yeah. Not only did he speak about it, but it was on the videos. It was in
I've seen clips of it. Yeah. And that's if he's on a tour and that's what he's doing, then I probably wouldn't waste my money. I want to be entertained. I don't care.
I think it's fair.
I probably wouldn't go. I don't care if you gave me a ticket. I'd probably avoid it. I mean, I've been to enough concerts in my life. He's not somebody that's on my bucket list anyways. I could have seen him play in Fort Lauderdale some years back when he was touring, or down in Miami. But I didn't, so it wasn't really thrilling to me.
He is
Roger Waters.
He is pretty good in concert.
Oh, no, I bet he is. But you know this about me. Sometimes I'm a purist. It's hard to, see somebody play. Well, no, I shouldn't say it in that respect, because I've seen Morrissey a number of times, and he only plays a select few Smith songs during each show. Fortunately, I've had enough. I could piece together a greatest hits album. I've seen him sing. So, I just don't dig that when they start getting played. It was cool in the 80s when Bono, this is not a rebel song, and all that shit. Yeah. But then you start to grow out of it. And listen, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and rock stars are entitled to their opinion, but they're also entitled to the fans that made them rich by just play your music.
Yeah, I get it.
Just play your music, man. It's great. I don't care who you support. I'm here to hear the music, and that's that's my answer to that. But thanks for just taking a simple question and really digging it into the ground. Good way to end. We're not ending the show like that, though, because you know what I have?
On this day.
Yes. I got to get one of those echo chambers to do on this day. Now, before I do that, is there we can continue talking about Pink Floyd. Is there anything you want to cover? Anything? No,
I think that we did a pretty good job covering most of the parts. I mean, we didn't really talk about. We didn't get into them. We talk about Roy Harper being, the singer on it, but that's all cool. I think we covered a lot of ground on old Pink Floyd.
How many songs did Nick Mason sing on out of their entire catalog?
Maybe 2 or 3.
Boy, you are on a roll tonight. You pick 7 and you pick 3. I think he sang on 3. His voice, let's just say his voice is on 3 songs. Yeah. And we didn't even talk about Nick Mason, but yeah, he's a drummer.
You know whose voice almost ended up on a Pink Floyd record? So as you probably know, the many times that you've listened to Dark Side of the Moon, there's a lot.
Paul McCartney and Linda McCartney. Yeah. He got a little too campy with the answer.
Yeah. He got too Paul McCartney, so they were like, we can't use this.
Give us some background just for the people that are listening, just in case. We don't want to just leave them like, what are they talking about?
So they recorded Dark Side of the Moon, I think, in Abbey Road Studios, or at least part of it. And they were doing some of the ambient things that are in Dark Side of the Moon. There's that chatter and like the random laughter, like the lunacy laughter and whatnot. And Paul and Linda McCartney happened to be there when they were recording, and they thought it would be kind of fun and interesting to have them, be in the background and whatnot. But Paul McCartney blew it. He started being, cute Paul and whatnot. It was just not usable.
Yeah. He thought he was going to be entertaining. I'm Paul McCartney, Yeah.
Yes.
And so he was nixed from that mix.
Yeah. Why are you playing all this weird ambient stuff? Why not play some silly little love songs?
Exactly. There you go. That was almost a good imitation. Almost. It was passable. You
like the Pink Floyd.
Now, speaking of the Beatles, on this day in music. And what's today's date, Jack? January
19th.
19, yeah. On this day in 1963, the Beatles made their first national TV appearance in the UK on Thank Your Lucky Stars, performing Please Please Me. Jack's yawning right now. Do you want me to put you in the green room? You can strum your guitar. This is your only time you can kind of, a little picking here and there,
Okay,
a little ambient, a little Pink Floyd ambience in the background. On this day in 1967, the Beatles began recording A Day in the Life at Abbey Road Studios, recording 4 takes of the new song. According to Lennon, the inspiration for the 2 verses was the death of Tara Brown, a 21-year-old heir to the Guinness fortune, who had crashed her Lotus Elan on 18th December 1966 in Redcliffe Gardens, London. So oddly enough, on this day in 1967, Pink Floyd, look at that, right? Pink Floyd and Marmalade played at the Marquee Club, London, England. Marmalade went on to score a #1 UK hit with their version of the Beatles' Oblada in 1968. I know. I saw Pink Floyd. I could have passed it up, but it's a Pink Floyd show, right?
Yeah, I get it.
On this day in 1971, tracks from the Beatles' The White Album, including Helter Skelter, were played in the courtroom at the Sharon Tate murder trial to find out if any songs could have influenced Charles Manson and his followers to commit murder. Actress Sharon Tate, who was married to film director Roman Polanski, was 8.5 months pregnant when she was murdered in her home, along with 4 others, by followers of Charles Manson. On this day in 1980, the Pretenders scored their first UK #1 hit with their 3rd single, Brass in Pocket, the band's self-titled debut album, one of the greatest debut albums ever.
Agreed.
Started a 4-week run at #1 in the UK chart. Also on this day, I screwed that up. Singer Chrissie Hynde got the idea.
Sorry.
Thank you. Singer Chrissie Hynde got the idea for the song's title when, during an after-show dinner, she overheard someone inquiring if anyone had picked up dry cleaning. Were there any brass in the pockets? Meaning money. It's over in England. Anyways, I know. On this day in 1980, Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd's The Wall started a 15-week run at #1 on the U.S. album chart. See how that all works in together? See?
I like it.
The group's 3rd U.S. #1. It went on to sell over 23 million copies in the U.S. alone. The Wall is still the 3rd largest grossing album in the U.S., behind Michael Jackson's Thriller and the Eagles' Greatest Hits. Right? It was a sad day on this day in 1998. American singer-songwriter Carl Perkins died at the age of 65 from throat cancer. He wrote the classic rock and roll song Blue Suede Shoes for the first record on Sun label to sell 1 million copies. His songs were recorded by Elvis Presley, the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, and Johnny Cash. Paul McCartney claimed that, quote, if there were no Carl Perkins, there would be no Beatles. Another sad day on this day in 2006, American soul singer Wilson Pickett died of a heart attack at age 64. Pickett recorded the soul classics Mustang Sally, that's a great song, Everybody Needs Some Love, and In the Midnight Hour, another great song. Plus, Pickett scored 15 other U.S. top 40 singles. Jesus, I didn't know that.
Pickett. Love Wilson Pickett.
Yeah. On this day in 2018, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner announced that Tom Petty had died accidentally from mixed drug toxicity, a combination of this fucking shit. Fentanyl, the fuck, oxycodone, acetylfentyl, and fentanyl, all opioids. And it goes on to list a couple other things, and an antidepressant. Petty's wife and daughter said he had multiple medical problems, including emphysema, you'd think, knee difficulties, and most significantly, a fractured hip. Their statement read, it's our feeling that the pain was simply unbearable and was the cause for this overdose of medication. We feel confident that this was the coroner's found an unfortunate accident. Another sad day on this day in 2020, and you can relate to, you'll like this one. Well, you won't like it, but you'll know. American R&B singer and musician Robert Parker died at 89. He was best known for his 1966 hit, Barefootin'. He played with most New Orleans musicians, including Fats Domino, Irma Thomas, and Huey Piano Smith. Yeah. Now, born on this day in what?
Nothing. I'm just.
Was that a big sigh that I just heard?
No, I think this is wonderful. Keep going.
I'd do it just to bother you. Anyways. Born on this day in 1943, Janis Joplin. One of the most overrated mutant rock people I've ever heard.
Oh, let's feature Janis Joplin next week.
Yeah, we'll do a 60-second segment on how overrated she was. Janis Joplin was born on this day, and I could go on about her overdosing, and I do think that that's hilarious that when she was in college, a fraternity voted her ugliest man on campus. That's hilarious. They voted her ugliest man on campus. It's true.
Terrible.
She was butt-ass ugly. And she's so ugly she could scare a buzzard off a shit wagon.
She looked a little like Sid Barrett.
Yeah, which she shaved her head and her eyebrows. Born on this day in 1946, Dolly Parton. All right. Born on this day in 1949.
How long is this going to go?
Hey, I'll put you in the green room. You will not be able to say goodnight. I will send you to your room. I will send you to your green room.
Put me in there.
The longer you talk, the longer this is going to go. Born on this day in 1949, Robert Palmer. His first solo album in 1974, Sneakin' Sally Through the Alley, was heavily influenced by the music of Little Feat and the funk fusion of the Meters. I love the Meters. Sissy Strut. The Sissy Strut is a great jam. They were actually the backing band, along with producer guitarist Lowell George of Little Feat. He had the 1986 U.S. #1 and #5 in the UK single, Addicted to Love. He was also a member of Power Station with former Chic drummer Tony Thompson, Duran Duran members John Taylor and Andy Taylor. Palmer died on September 26, 2003. He was only 54.
Big cocaine guy.
Yeah. And born on this day in 1951, a very underrated singer from the 80s. I think she gets a little respect, but not enough, I don't think. Martha Davis of the Motels was born on this day in 1951. I think their debut album was a pretty slamming album, too.
I think you're right. Very, very underrated. Beautiful woman, beautiful singer.
Yeah. All Dressed Up is my favorite Motel song. Great song. And with that, buddy, we've come to the end of another show.
It was a good one.
It was. Yeah, it's a long one. Considering you should have been in bed 20 minutes ago.
No, I got to paint.
That a boy.
I haven't done my painting of the day. I got some stupid bottles set up and Pink Floyd on. And
when are you gonna paint the thumbtack? Dave Phillips said Robert Palmer, no doubt, best dressed man in rock and roll. No doubt. Well, I don't know. Who was a better dressed man? Robert Palmer? Huh?
David Bowie.
No. Brian Ferry.
Brian Ferry, very good.
That's a sharp dressed man right there. But all right, listen. Prince was a good dresser. Yeah. I'm not gonna get it. We could go on all night about best dressed men. But anyways, Jack, once again, my friend, I love you. Thank you for your time. I know you're a very busy man, and you take the time each week to do this, although sometimes you drive me crazy with scheduling, but I will always find time for you, Jack.
Scott, it's always a pleasure. I enjoy it very much. And
hey, did Scott the IT guy give us an outro? He's been slacking.
He did not, but
he was in and out. He dropped a little, at like the 20-minute mark, he dropped in a snide comment.
It looks like we have Jeff Richardson.
Yeah, welcome to the show, buddy.
Scott's counterpart. So we have half of the IT department.
All right. Excellent. Well, you know what, Jeff? You might just take over Scott's spot. We might have Jeff the IT guy. See,
Jeff,
Scott didn't think he'd have competition. Huh?
But by the way, he's a music guy, good guitar player.
He's already winning points. Uh-oh. Scott the IT guy. I'd be in a little trouble. All right. Like Scott the IT guy would say, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you like us, hit the subscribe. I work for Scott. And Scott works for us. So, he works for the Milk Crates and Turntables podcast. So, anyways. All right. Let's get out of here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you like it, subscribe. If you're listening, give us a good rating. Give us 5 stars. Leave a comment. You can reach us at milkcratesandturntables@gmail.com if you got suggestions for the show. We're always open to listen. And until next week, buddy.
See you on the dark side of the moon, brother.
Good way to end it.